More than $3.5 million in the hole. Mayor Tiffany Henyard is accused of misusing money, and today,
with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas? What is that?
No, sir.
You don't know if you were in Las Vegas?
Of course I do.
Did you fly first class to Las Vegas?
Any other questions?
You're not going to answer how taxpayer dollars are being spent? That seems odd.
I just answered it. What do you mean? I just answered your question.
You said you wouldn't answer.
Federal investigators have increased their scrutiny of Dalton Mayor and Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, uncovering significant evidence linking her to the alleged laundering and misappropriation of public funds. This development adds to the growing controversy surrounding her administration. In April 2024, FBI agents served subpoenas at the Thornton Township Hall, requesting extensive business records and financial documents from Henyard's various enterprises, including a restaurant, a property management company, her political action committee, and a charity bearing her name. The subpoenas also sought detailed records from the township, covering budgets, payroll data, credit card expenditures, expense reimbursements, security details, and vehicle usage, signaling a broad federal investigation into her activities. Henyard has faced multiple accusations of misusing taxpayer funds for personal gain, such as paying for a police security detail and financing extravagant travel. A prime example of this is a Taste of Thornton Township event, which cost $85,000 and featured performances by R&B artist Kiki Wyatt and rapper Jay Holiday. The event was widely criticized for its high cost and poor attendance. Further allegations suggest a misuse of public funds for private purposes, including luxury vacations and the delayed issuance of liquor licenses for local businesses, leading to legal action and a contempt of court finding against her. The investigation has expanded to focus on Henyard's close associates, with subpoenas requesting records related to township employees, including her top lieutenant Keith Freeman and her boyfriend, who runs the township's youth violence prevention program. The broad scope of the subpoenas suggests serious allegations of misconduct. As the investigation progresses, the evidence gathered will play a crucial role in determining Henyard's legal fate, potentially leading to charges that could result in her imprisonment, depending on the strength of the evidence.
Get these phones. Stop playing these silly games, board of trustees, and putting people's lives in jail.
Do what you want. But anything after this is insubordination.
I'm gonna remember this, because at the end of the day, I told you, you guys don't run it day-to-day.
In a dramatic twist, federal charges have been brought against Lee Lacey, the deputy police chief and longtime ally of controversial Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, further deepening the crisis surrounding her administration. Since Henyard's election in 2021, Lacey has been one of her most loyal supporters, providing steadfast confidence during a tumultuous time. However, Lacey now faces an indictment on bankruptcy fraud charges, accused of hiding assets and income to avoid settling a previous lawsuit and deceiving creditors. His legal team strongly denies the allegations, arguing that the charges are a calculated attempt to pressure him into turning against Henyard, whose administration has been mired in accusations of mismanagement, corruption, and ethical violations. This indictment threatens to escalate the already significant turmoil surrounding Henyard's tenure as mayor, which has been marked by mounting scandals and leadership challenges. Lacey's legal troubles only add to the growing pressure on Henyard, who has been facing increasing calls for accountability and transparency, particularly concerning her handling of public funds. Just last week, Lacey was placed on administrative leave by the city's trustees, who have expressed frustration with Henyard's leadership, signaling a rift in the political establishment. Despite the leave order, Lacey reportedly continued to show up for work, defying the trustees' instructions. His defiant stance has raised eyebrows and fueled speculation about his future intentions. Some observers now believe that Lacey, once a loyal ally to Henyard, may be a crucial figure in exposing further corruption within her administration. There is growing speculation that Lacey could hold critical evidence that would significantly damage Henyard's political career, particularly concerning claims of the misuse of public funds. If Lacey cooperates with investigators and provides testimony, it could deliver a devastating blow to Henyard's already tarnished reputation and potentially validate the numerous allegations against her. The indictment of Lacey and the possibility of his cooperation with authorities have brought renewed scrutiny to Henyard's leadership. Questions are now swirling about the extent of Henyard's involvement in any financial misconduct and whether she has used taxpayer money for her own personal benefit. The collapse of one of her closest allies could have far-reaching consequences for her political future, further eroding the public trust and that of her political colleagues for Henyard. This moment represents a high-stakes turning point in her career. As one of her key supporters faces legal jeopardy, the pressure on her administration continues to mount. Public demands for accountability are growing, and many are closely watching Lacey's potential role in a larger investigation into corruption and abuse of power within Henyard's government. This new development has the potential to reshape the political landscape, with Lacey's cooperation potentially signaling the beginning of the end for Henyard's embattled administration.
Of Dalton has been charged with bankruptcy fraud. Louis Lacey is accused of filing misleading statements in his 2019 bankruptcy case. Lacey is a close ally of Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. He's actually the second top aide to Henyard to face federal bankruptcy fraud charges.
Amid growing legal and political turmoil, Lee Lacey, the deputy police chief and a staunch ally of Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, remains fiercely loyal to her despite mounting pressure from all sides. His legal team has publicly defended him, asserting that the federal investigation targeting Lacey is a calculated effort to use him as a pawn in a broader campaign to bring down Mayor Henyard. According to his defense, investigators have been pressuring key individuals within the village, hoping to find someone willing to break ranks and turn against the mayor. But Lacey, much like a devoted guard dog, continues to stand firmly by Henyard, refusing to waver in the face of the investigation. However, despite Lacey's steadfast support, recent developments indicate that the federal government may already have critical evidence that could link Mayor Henyard to serious misconduct. This shift in the storyline intensifies the stakes of this ongoing political drama, which has captivated public attention and raised questions about the integrity of the entire administration. For those unfamiliar with the unfolding saga, it all began after the sudden passing of former Mayor Frank Zerl, leaving the Board of Trustees with the difficult task of selecting a successor to complete his term. Under state election laws, the board had just 60 days to make its decision. As the deadline approached, many anticipated that a seasoned trustee, such as Joyce Washington, who had served as interim supervisor, or Jerry Jones, would step up. Other candidates, like Cass Sanders Sten, the township assessor, were also considered. Yet, in true political fashion, nothing went as planned. The board found itself deadlocked, unable to agree on a single candidate until at the last minute. Trustee Christopher G. Gonzalez surprised everyone by nominating Tiffany Henyard just minutes before the deadline. Gonzalez's late nomination was seen by many as a desperate attempt to avoid leaving the decision to the public. Many were shocked to learn who Tiffany Henyard was and why her name had not been mentioned earlier. It turned out that Henyard had applied for the position long before, but her name had not been put forward until that critical moment. When Henyard was sworn in as mayor, her first meeting went smoothly, and she pledged to serve the community with honesty and responsibility. Gonzalez, who had pushed through her nomination, acknowledged his desire to avoid a public election, hoping the approaching deadline would bring the board together. At first, everything seemed to fall into place, but beneath the surface, tensions were already brewing. Rumors began to circulate about Henyard's growing resentment toward those loyal to the former mayor, Frank Zerl. Speculation soon grew that a personal vendetta against these individuals was beginning to form. These rumors eventually escalated into open conflict. One of Henyard's first actions as mayor was to fire Jessica Jones, with Jerry Jones leading the motion and Joyce Washington supporting it. The motion passed with unanimous support, including from Gonzalez, the very person who had nominated Henyard. This move marked the beginning of a series of power plays that would soon embroil the entire township in controversy. Next, Henyard set her sights on Stephanie Weidman, a longtime employee who had worked for the township since 2002 and had even been elevated under Mayor Zerl to the role of executive assistant, with aspirations of becoming chief of staff. Weidman had been part of Zerl's transition team, working alongside Dr. Jerry Williams to oversee township operations. But after Henyard rose to power, Weidman's position became increasingly precarious. During a meeting with Henyard, Weidman was informed that she was no longer considered part of the new mayor's team, and her responsibilities were stripped away. This marked the beginning of Weidman's exclusion from Henyard's administration, leaving her feeling sidelined after years of dedicated service. As Henyard's behavior grew more divisive, rumors began circulating that she was harassing individuals associated with the former administration. One of the most troubling incidents involved Township Clerk Estes Pender, who allegedly locked herself in her office in a fit of rage, scattering private documents, including medical records and social security numbers, across public spaces. This careless breach of privacy sparked outrage, especially given the sensitive nature of the documents involved. The township was thrust into the spotlight, and the public's trust in Henyard's leadership began to erode. Concerns over her handling of sensitive information, along with her growing authoritarian tendencies, only further fueled dissatisfaction with her administration. These events were only the beginning. Henyard's tenure took a sharp turn for the worse as her controversial decisions to fire multiple employees led to a series of lawsuits, raising serious concerns about her leadership style. One of the earliest legal challenges came from Sandra Tracy, a former human resources manager who alleged wrongful termination and retaliation after taking medical leave for surgery. Tracy claimed that upon her return to work, she was demoted, denied access to her office, and ultimately dismissed. In her lawsuit, Tracy also cited emotional distress, seeking damages and back pay for what she described as unjust treatment. Tracy's lawsuit was followed by another from Karen Johnson, a former administrative assistant in the Public Works Department, who claimed her termination violated her constitutional rights. Johnson contended that she was punished for refusing to work on Henyard's recall campaign during business hours, an activity she argued violated village rules. Johnson's lawsuit painted a troubling picture of Henyard's administration, alleging that the mayor had exploited her position to punish those who did not show complete loyalty to her. Johnson, along with other employees, accused Henyard of creating a toxic work environment where dissent was not tolerated and loyalty to the mayor was rewarded. While disloyalty was met with retaliation, these legal challenges were compounded by another round of lawsuits filed by Sammy Shaw Williams, a former village trustee candidate. Williams claimed that Henyard ordered village officials to disregard public data requests and intentionally withheld information following Henyard's survival of a recall referendum. Williams, who had been fired in 2022, believed her dismissal was part of a broader effort by Henyard to silence opposition and suppress dissent. The growing number of lawsuits underscored the mounting concerns about Henyard's management style and the potential abuse of power within her administration. As the legal challenges continued to pile up, another startling discovery came to light. Henyard and her associates had spent over $122,000 on travel expenses. This revelation further fueled suspicions that taxpayer funds were being misused for personal and political gain. Critics argued that such lavish spending was particularly egregious at a time when the township faced numerous challenges, suggesting Henyard was more concerned with her own comfort than with serving her constituents. The travel expenses were not the only point of contention. Investigations revealed that Henyard had charged an astounding $133,000 at the Marriott Marquis in New York City and nearly $1 million at the Four Seasons in Atlanta. These amounts seemed incomprehensible for a village already facing significant financial difficulties, prompting many to ask how Henyard could justify such extravagant expenditures. Given the township's growing debt and resource shortages, many question the mayor's priorities, especially when public funds should have been directed toward essential services and community needs in addition to these excessive travel costs. There were growing concerns about inflated salaries within Henyard's administration. Some individuals connected to Henyard reportedly received up to $900,000 over the span of just 2 years, far exceeding the typical compensation for similar roles. These financial irregularities, combined with suspicions of corruption and possible quid pro quo arrangements, deepened the sense of unease surrounding Henyard's leadership. Among the most alarming accusations was the alleged misuse of Dalton police officers for Henyard's personal security detail. This scandal was particularly troubling, given the already strained law enforcement resources in the village. Critics argued that Henyard's decision to use taxpayer-funded police officers for her personal protection amounted to a reckless disregard for public resources. As financial mismanagement and ethical concerns mounted, the FBI began focusing its attention on Henyard's administration, investigating potential misconduct and the misuse of public funds simultaneously. Former Chicago mayor and federal prosecutor Lori Lightfoot was brought in to lead a separate investigation into Henyard's leadership. Lightfoot's findings painted an even more dire picture, revealing that Dalton was facing over $3.5 million in debt, with village credit card spending spiraling out of control under Henyard's watch. Despite this, Henyard seemed determined to present herself as a self-proclaimed super mayor, someone who believed she held the keys to the kingdom and that her position was secure. Regardless of the financial strain or mounting legal scrutiny, this disregard for the tax-paying residents who funded the village's coffers sparked outrage among many. Henyard's continued prioritization of personal luxury, while the community struggled, only deepened the public's disillusionment. As the investigations unfolded and more details emerged, it became increasingly unclear how Henyard's reign would end. With mounting legal and financial pressures, many began to wonder whether her loyal deputy, Lee Lacey, would remain steadfast in his support or whether he too would turn against her in the face of overwhelming evidence of corruption and misconduct. The ongoing saga has kept the public on edge, with Henyard's political future hanging in the balance. The question remains, will Henyard be held accountable for her actions? And will those who have stood by her, like Lacey, continue to support her until the end? As the investigations continue, all eyes are on Henyard, and the next developments promise to be just as dramatic as the ones that have come before. The future of Henyard's administration seems increasingly uncertain, with each new revelation adding to the mounting pressure for accountability.